So thanks for being back, and if you could take your seats so that we can start. We are already 7 minutes late.
Okay, so I think we're going to start. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alexandre Kolev. I'm leading the work on social cohesion at the OECD Development Center. And I would like to welcome you to this third session of the USP 2030 conference, which is on achieving universal social protection. And I have the pleasure, actually, to co-chair this session with my colleague, Eppu Mikkonen, from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Finland. So at a time where debates about universal social protection are generating much attention, we thought that it would be extremely important actually to have this session to better understand some of the opportunities and challenges to implement universal and sustainable social protection systems as set out in SDG 1.3. And this is why, our main objective in this session will be to explore some of the pathways to universal social protection that countries at different stages of development and from different regions of the world have been taken. So, this afternoon, we're going to hear from government officials about the experiences of countries that have made good progress in achieving universal coverage, different stages of the life cycle, including takeaways from recent experience, such as universal health coverage, child benefits, and old age pensions. We also will be listening to social protection experts about the ways to extend social protection to informal economy workers. Now, it is not a secret that the road to universal social protection can be difficult. Recent evidence shows indeed that in many countries rich or poor, progress has not been without challenges. One common challenge is to ensure a strong and long-term willingness of governments and taxpayers to invest in the expansion of social protection. So, for many of us here, this may be at odds, with the fact that social protection has gained in recent years an ever greater recognition, not only as a fundamental human right, but also as an effective way to tackle poverty and vulnerability. However, the feedback that we're receiving is that, in many countries, making a strong investment case for social protection during budget discussions can remain a difficult task, not least since the economic impact of social protection investments remain overall insufficiently documented, and also because contrasting views still exist about the contribution of social protection to growth and equity. In this context, at the OECD, we have been actually recently looking at the impact of social protection on inclusive growth. And the findings actually do indicate that, social protection investment can make, good economic sense. And we really do hope that, this type of findings we help build a more solid economic case for investing in social protection. Another challenge, particularly in countries with a large informal economy, is to find the appropriate modalities to expand coverage in a way that recognizes the diversity of informal economy workers and provide them with solutions that are fair, efficient, and sustainable. So in recent research that we did jointly with the ILO has been looking at the vulnerability challenge in the informal economy. And one important conclusion of this research using the new OECD key indicators of informality based on individuals and households is that adding the household dimension into the profiling of informal workers is important for the formalization agenda, as it casts new lights on the ways, on the various channels at the household level through which social protection can reach informal workers. So in the sample of countries for which we had data, we find that on average about 1/3 of informal workers live in poor households and could be a priori covered if social assistance was extended to all eligible poor households. Another average of 40% live in food-secure households and could a priori afford to enroll in contributory social protection schemes, while another quarter actually live in mixed households. That means with other members of the households that are actually working in the formal economy that are covered by formal social protection schemes, and that's also another way of looking at the possibility to extend some social protection schemes, in particular health insurance. Now, a third challenge also as governments in developing countries embark on the road to expand social protection is to make social protection instruments gender sensitive. Too often we see that gender still receives only limited attention in social protection schemes. And like many others at the OECD, we have repeatedly underlined first that gender-neutral social insurance framework do not guarantee gender-neutral outcomes. And second, that social assistance programs that overemphasize the role of women as caregivers may actually have some adverse effects. So this is why we believe that for universal social protection to deliver fair and equal outcomes at all stages of the life cycles for women and men, public policy needs to encourage a greater role for men as caregivers and for women as workers, and to better recognize the value of unpaid care work. Now, despite these challenges, the good news is probably the enormous progress that many countries have made towards universal social protection in recent years, which is actually resulting in a rapidly growing evidence base from all parts of the world. So since 2015, the OECD and Finland have been working together under the European Union Social Protection System program with 10 countries in Asia and Africa that are in the process of expanding their social protection system. And the lessons emerging are as varied as the countries themselves, but we have found considerable common ground across the countries, particularly in two key areas. First, many of the countries already possess strong foundations for universal social protection, regardless of their income level. In some cases, the basis is information, as we found, for example, with Cambodia's ID Poor system and Indonesia unified database that serve as a common database for all social assistance programs. In other cases, one or two programs can actually lay the foundation for extension. For example, the success enjoyed by Ethiopia's Productive Safety Net program has not only paved the way for a urban poverty safety net program, but also for a new health initiative. In some other case, matching contributions are the route taken to close the coverage gap. Indonesia's health system, whose progress towards universal coverage is an international success story, is a living example of how governments can expand coverage by subsidizing the contribution of poor workers. Second takeaway, universal social protection can be affordable. As countries increase their fiscal space and the efficiency of public service delivery, so the viability of increasing coverage grows. However, as also shown in many studies, the fairness of social protection financing needs careful monitoring. In Togo, for example, recent OECD analysis shows that fiscal policy reduces inequality but aggravates poverty. So better understanding the impact of taxes and transfer on poverty and vulnerability is absolutely critical. So in a nutshell, while the answers to the massive social protection coverage gap are not always simple, it is crystal clear that innovative solutions exist that can be uncovered from many country experiences. So with this in mind, I would like to welcome our 5 panelists today. So we have the pleasure today to have, on my extreme right, Ms. Rachel Moussier. Rachel, you're the Deputy Director of the Social Protection Program from the Women in Informal Employment, Globalizing and Organizing, the WEGO think tank, and member also of the Global Coalition for social protection floor. Next to you, we have the pleasure to welcome Ms. Aida Kazimalieva, who is a member of the Kyrgyz Parliament and the Committee on Social Affairs of the Kyrgyz Republic. On my right, we have the pleasure to welcome Ms. Salome Indenga, who is the head of the Directorate of Policy and Strategies at the Ministry of Poverty, Eradication and Social Welfare of Namibia. Then on my very left, Pak Maliki, Director of Population Planning and Social Security from Bappenas, Indonesia. Then next to Mr. Maliki, we have Ms. Mirta Denis, who is the Executive Director of the Technical Unit of the Social Cabinet of the Presidency of Paraguay. So, I have a first set of questions for our government officials. So can you identify one area of social protection where your country has made good progress towards universal provision, and why this was chosen? And based on such experience, can you tell us also more about, the pitfalls encountered and the steps that are needed to ensure that the process of establishing universal coverage runs as smoothly as possible. So may I ask actually Ms. Mirta first to share your thought on that?
Buenas tardes a todos. Muchas gracias a la organización por la invitación, sobre todo para compartir la experiencia de Paraguay en este ámbito y el tránsito hacia la universalización de protección social. En un minuto me gustaría presentar a Paraguay. Paraguay con un PIB de 29.9 millones de dólares y es reconocido a nivel global por sus capacidades en términos de producción de materia prima para alimentar a gran parte del mundo. Con estas potencialidades y sobre todo con lo que referimos en términos de factor económico sumado al factor energético, Paraguay se encuentra en un momento clave para dar un paso más en términos de sus políticas sociales y sobre todo lo que tiene que ver con protección social. En ese sentido, me permito señalar que en la última década Paraguay ha conseguido ampliar sus programas de protección social, incluyendo y privilegiando principalmente al primer quintil de la población medido en términos de ingresos y pasando de una cobertura de un 9% a 32% en los diferentes programas de protección social. Si nosotros vemos los diferentes sectores y los programas que tenemos en términos de focalización, pero principalmente lo que tienen que ver con privilegiar y priorizar a los sectores más vulnerables. Estamos hablando de casi un 30% de la población que tiene esta cobertura. Si tuviéramos que centrarnos en un ejemplo, también en la última década la cobertura en salud ha sido sumamente importante, con una política bastante audaz en términos de la universalización de todo el sistema de salud. Y ha conseguido inclusive capitalizar y sobre todo invertir en las zonas más vulnerables y más alejadas del territorio, pasando de una cobertura de un 50% a un 80% también en esta última década. Sin embargo, queda un 20% que realmente es nuestro desafío. Si tuviéramos que mencionar los programas y los esfuerzos en términos de reducción de pobreza, también han sido muy importantes, sumado a la ampliación de la cobertura de los programas sociales, lo que tiene que ver con salud y sobre todo lo que tiene que ver con educación y programas específicos que tienen que ver con la inclusión y la disminución de la desigualdad. Estamos hablando de un esfuerzo sostenido en reducir la pobreza en los últimos 20 años que ha venido de un 50% de la población en situación de pobreza ha conseguido reducir a un 26.6%. Sin embargo, en el último periodo del gobierno anterior y parte de este gobierno, se realizó un esfuerzo muy importante en términos de una evaluación del hacer social en mi país. Este esfuerzo de un diagnóstico y sobre todo una política propositiva se inicia en el seno del Gabinete Social e invita a varios sectores de la población referentes sobre todo a un diálogo muy participativo en términos de construir una agenda social, poniendo en el centro la instalación del sistema de protección social y sobre todo y a propósito de lo que nos dicta los ODS en términos de la meta 1.3, que es instalar sistemas apropiados de protección social. Esto en un transitar hacia la cobertura total de la población. En países en los cuales tenemos un potencial muy importante de crecimiento económico, pero donde todavía tenemos muchas vulnerabilidades y sobre todo mucha desigualdad, este es un desafío sumamente importante. En ese sentido, no solamente desde el gobierno y desde el Ejecutivo, sino que también sumado al sector privado, la academia, las organizaciones de la sociedad civil, los referentes del Congreso y formadores de opinión han ayudado a construir una nota de política, el cual el gobierno que salía en ese momento, estamos hablando del año pasado, entrega al gobierno y sobre todo no solamente al gobierno que estaba empujando fuertemente, sino a todos los sectores políticos, porque ellos también forman parte en el Congreso y tienen un rol muy importante en términos legislativos cuando hablamos de protección social. Este esfuerzo con aliados estratégicos de la cooperación, principalmente debemos reconocer a la delegación de la Unión Europea que ha apostado a este diálogo amplio y muy participativo y sumado también a otros organismos internacionales, nos ha podido de alguna manera instalar una propuesta de sistema de protección social y hoy en Paraguay estamos hablando no solamente de programas aislados de protección social, sino estamos hablando de un sistema de protección social que no deje a nadie atrás. Y en este sentido, ya con el nuevo gobierno y a partir de este año, hemos asignado del presupuesto general de gastos de la Nación el 30% de los recursos destinados a la implementación del sistema de protección social, una ampliación de los principales programas de protección social, pero por otro lado también eligiendo principalmente aquellos sectores a ser privilegiados en términos de una cobertura de 100%. El esfuerzo es muy grande, estamos construyendo metas graduales y sobre todo muy viables, porque sabemos que año a año tenemos que ir haciendo que el presupuesto, y como nos referían en el panel anterior cuando nos hablaba un secretario de Finanzas, es el diálogo muy intenso que siempre tenemos con ese sector. Tenemos que hacer que los presupuestos sean eficientes. Y en ese sentido, como parte de la estrategia para la implementación amplia del sistema de protección social, trajimos a la mesa y al gabinete a un actor clave, al Ministerio de Hacienda. Hoy el Ministerio de Hacienda forma parte de este diálogo y este esfuerzo que estamos haciendo y es nuestro aliado principal en términos de la ampliación de la cobertura. Pero ya no queremos hablar solamente de programas, estamos hablando de estrategias y estamos hablando de coordinación y de llegada a territorio y articulación también. Y ahí es que quiero plantear, y en base a la pregunta que nos hacen aquí, cuáles son los principales desafíos que estamos viendo. Los principales desafíos tienen que ver con la gobernanza. Y la gobernanza no incluye solo al Ejecutivo, la gobernanza tiene que ver con los diferentes sectores de la sociedad, porque el sistema de protección social no solamente está involucrado un gobierno de turno o el Ejecutivo, sino también el poder legislativo, como es el caso de mi país, y muy importante también los gobiernos locales. Es un hacer de todos. Y en la medida que vayamos entendiendo que es un compromiso de todos, es que nadie va a quedar atrás. El otro tema muy importante que deviene de lo que estamos hablando y lo llamamos nosotros gobernanza en Paraguay, construir un sistema de protección social desde la institucionalidad y generar capacidades para su implementación, tiene que ver justamente con esto, con una alianza con un sector de la población muy importante y también llegar a toda la ciudadanía. Es empoderar a la ciudadanía y dar a conocer sus derechos, porque en la medida que los derechos son conocidos y reconocidos es que van a ser cumplidos, ¿verdad? Y en ese sentido es que estamos trabajando con una lógica y modelo de gestión que involucra a los gobiernos locales, involucra también a las organizaciones de la sociedad civil, involucra a los sectores privados en territorio. Esto tiene que ver con el modelo de gestión que nosotros decimos que el presupuesto de este año es inercial porque arrancamos con una base y un piso a partir de lo que existe, pero gradualmente y de manera sostenida esto tiene que ir transformándose. El presupuesto que nosotros estamos pensando para el 2020, que todavía debe ser más inclusivo, debe incorporar la lógica de la nueva institucionalidad y herramientas e instrumentos que nos permitan coordinar. Eso no significa la coordinación, en muchos casos es entendido como un manejo de poder. Para nosotros la coordinación es un ceder de poder. Ceder poder en el sentido de privilegiar a aquellas instituciones que están sobre todo implementando, que están con la gente, están haciendo llegar las prestaciones a la gente y los servicios sociales. Y seguramente en la siguiente pregunta vamos a hablar un poco más de los pilares de protección social que quiero anticipar que Paraguay ha definido, sin dejar de trabajar y de priorizar a la población más vulnerable. Paraguay va a seguir ocupándose de la población en situación de pobreza, pero ha incorporado al sistema de protección social como otro eje fundamental el trabajar en términos de la informalización del trabajo para que cada vez la podamos reducir y podamos incorporar y dejar de lado la precariedad del empleo, por un lado. Y por otro lado, también muy importante, y es un dato que también acá quiero compartir con ustedes, es la ampliación del sistema de seguridad. Nosotros en 20 años que transitamos con programas de protección social, entendíamos desde la lógica de programas y no desde el sistema, que protección social solo incluía a la población en situación de pobreza. Pero estos años nos han enseñado y nos han mostrado que si no trabajamos al mismo tiempo con otro sector también desprotegido, como son los que trabajan en el sector informal o que están excluidos de un sistema de seguridad social, probablemente el rendimiento de estos programas van a ser muy limitados y los recursos nunca van a ser eficientes. Entonces, en ese sentido, además del pilar de inclusión social, tenemos comprometido un pilar de formalización del trabajo que lo lidera el Ministerio de Trabajo con una fuerte campaña y un fuerte diálogo con el sector privado, y por otro lado también un pilar que tiene que ver con la seguridad social, y esa seguridad social lo lidera no solamente el Ministerio de Hacienda y el Instituto de Previsión Social, sino también convoca a las cajas, otras cajas que están en el sector privado. Entonces, yo tal vez me quedaría por aquí abierta a siguientes preguntas. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Ms. Denise. I think we see from Paraguay an example of a strong political commitment to leave no one behind. That is mirrored in, substantial resources invested in social protection that contribute to a drop in poverty, with also some challenges in terms of governance issues, trying to find the right balance of decision makers at different levels, and the need also to ensure coordination across different line ministries. Thank you very much. Let me now actually turn to Pak Maliki from the Indonesian experience. Can you answer the question?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. Let me answer questions beginning by also describing about the Indonesian case. Indonesia is one of the big fifth, I guess, the most populated countries in the world. We counted around 265 populations in 2018, And we are going to facing a challenges to be an aging populations in the next 1 or 2 years ahead. So it means that we have around 10% of the populations aged more than 60 years old. And in the same time, in the next 5 years, we are going to have also the peak of our young populations. So it means that we are also going to have a challenging in how we can optimize the demographic dividend in our country. In terms of the social protections itself, our constitutions in 1945 already mandated our nations to protect all the peoples, all the peoples, and the country is obligated to support for all the vulnerable, poor and vulnerable, and also the negligence. So that's 1945, but not until 2000, I guess. There is legislations. The government introduced key legislation for the social rights and also the employment programs. And then after that, we also have integrations of the social protections or poverty alleviations programs into our national plan documents. Starting from 2000, I guess there is the strategy, national strategy on the poverty alleviations. And every 5 years, we are updating the plans. Since then, we are having a lot of great strides towards the universal health coverage, and also a number of social protection programs keep growing. I guess from OECD record in 2012, it is recorded around 30, and it is growing in 2015 around 37. However, in those years, there's some risk remain across the life cycles, including the high levels of stunting in some areas, indicating that we need to have a better link social protection with the health interventions. Also relatively high rates, both in the young age and also the elderly populations. And remember that we are going to have aging populations in the next few years. As well as for the youth, we are going to have a peak young populations in the next 5 years. And we still have big homework on how we can improve our labor market policy to be more active, and also how it is, can be consistent with the labor demand. So in the past 4 years, so all the development from 2000, and then we have now is 2015, and to 2019, we are going to close this medium-term year, the national medium planning in 2019, so it will be ended. And in the past 4 years, the implementation of the social protection have a great great progress toward integrated system, as well as the better targeting system. So it takes us to single digits poverty rates in the last month. And referring to your questions on how we are having one of the most successful social protections for all is, actually we can name two. One is the most successful social protections in the coverage is our national health insurance. It covers around almost 80%. And I think we are going to discuss that a bit later. But one thing is that actually about almost striking is the other sources, potential sources of the village fund utilization. So I think from 2015, we are starting to have the village fund transfer to the village level. And now it's covering almost like 80,000 villages, and the fund is growing. The utilization of the fund itself is actually directed towards more having job opportunities like public works programs, also empowerment of the people at the village level, social infrastructures such as, I think the most one is the clinics and also the early childhood. And more recent years is we have also focused the utilization of the village funds for the cash and in-kind transfer to the for the cash for works programs. And this is, I think this is also contributed very significantly to reducing the poverty to the single digits for the last year, as well as to reduce the inequality, both at national level as well as the village level. Even though, like a few months ago, the inequality increasing slightly increasing in the village level, but I thought it is back declining, and we see there is a potential of the economic growth in the village because of this fund. And if we are talking the potentials of the village funds, also it's opened more access, successfully opened the access for the isolated group, especially for the civil registrations and also vital statistics. And now there's a lot of people from the outer islands as well as the isolated places to have birth certificates. And this one is opened, almost like open all the access to other government programs, especially the social protections. The challenges, I guess, still remained. How actually we can direct the fund to provide more access to the low-income populations for a better job, and also how to use the fund is to catalyze long-term gains on the investment on the human capital. I guess the village level, village fund is a very powerful tool because this one is a basic fund that a fund that can build a very basic infrastructures of the social protections in the village level. So then it can be like combating some of the programs, like combating stunting through more building social infrastructure, and also building more social cohesions to strengthen information platform at the village level of the importance of civil registration and vital statistics. The information technology also now is being enhanced because of the village funds. The internet penetrations in the village level, I think it's almost doubled since like the last 2 years, and it gives more open opportunity for, especially for the women in the village level, because some of the village women's like have an access to open the business through the internet. And if you can imagine that if the infrastructures between the village and also to the economic centers is open by using this fund, they can have more better access for the economic activity. Because now in Indonesia, the internet business is opening up and grow very rapidly. And this is a very good opportunity for also for the poor populations to have more access to the economic activity. I think that's for now.
Thank you, Pak Maliki. I think a very interesting example. You had mentioned actually the specific context of Indonesia with aging population, yet also the young population really reaching a peak, and the importance of reconciling social and labor market policy. Let me now go to Ms. Kazimalieva. So on the Kyrgyz example, I guess you have also many things to share with us.
Здравствуйте, уважаемые гости конференции. Если у всех есть перевод, то начну. Я бы хотела характеризовать Кыргызстан, его подход и усилия по переходу на универсальную социальную защиту, как уже ранее говорилось, 1 шаг вперед, 2 шага назад. Влияет очень много факторов. Это вот политические моменты, я далее расскажу, и нехватка средств в бюджете. Для начала я хочу рассказать о Кыргызстане, основные статистические данные, которые вам дадут понимание, что происходило. В Кыргызстане 6-миллионное население, чуть более 6 миллионов. За чертой бедности проживает 25%. За чертой крайней бедности это 0,8% населения. Доля детей, которые проживают в бедных домохозяйствах, это 32%. до 18 лет, вообще детей до 18 лет от общего числа населения 38%. И 10% населения являются пенсионерами. Сегодня я хочу сосредоточиться на наших усилиях правительства и парламента, когда мы 2 года назад пытались реформировать систему социальной защиты по выплатам пособий для детей, чтобы был более универсальный подход. Но, к сожалению, это осталось половинчатым, и наши усилия не достигли своих целей. Сосредоточимся на этом, но в целом, если про Кыргызстан рассказать, у нас бесплатное образование до 9 класса и до 5 лет бесплатное здравоохранение. В июне 2017 года группа депутатов, среди них и я, инициировали законопроект по изменению. Если до этого государство оплачивало детям из бедных семей и был адресный подход, мы пытались внедрить такую систему, когда три шага. Первый шаг – это единовременная выплата, универсальное пособие по рождению ребенка. Это около $60, $58. Вторая часть, второй шаг – это универсальное категориальное пособие, ежемесячное от 0 до 3 лет. Это каждому ребенку в размере до $10 в месяц. И третье – это ежемесячное для многодетных семей пособие на 3-го ребенка, то есть начиналось от 3-го ребенка. До этого были исследования, почему нужно начинать с 3-го ребенка, потому что по исследованиям показывали, что нищета, бедность начинается от 3-го ребенка. И мы хотели очень сильно, второй шаг, это от 0 до 3 лет, чтобы каждый ребенок получал это пособие, потому что это бы уменьшало бы бедность, тоже по исследованиям, намного сокращало бы бедность, потому что до этого проблемы по пособиям, по детским пособиям касались 2-3 моментов. Первый момент – это коррупционность, потому что 60% детей проходили мимо, не получали эти пособия, система их не видела, самые бедные дети не получают, потому что система коррупционная. Получают те люди, которые не нуждаются в этих пособиях. И второе – это очень много документов, это тоже коррупционный барьер, когда нужно собирать очень много документов, и эти дети, эти семьи, которые должны получать эти пособия, они не могут получить эти пособия. Поэтому мы хотели на такой шаг пошли, поскольку большинство семей, имеющих 3 и более детей, я уже это объяснила, являются бедными, предлагаемая структура предусматривала решение вопросов детской уязвимости, представляя собой более простой в администрировании подход. И закон прошел в 2017 году, парламентом был принят, подписан президентом, но в январе 2018 года, тогда правительство было новое, и были президентские выборы, определенная политическая обстановка, и в обществе тоже были очень большие дискуссии, почему богатые семьи отбирают пособия бедных семей. В целом вышли очень такие большие проблемы, то есть не касающиеся пособий. Они стали говорить, почему у меня 2 детей, я тоже живу бедно, почему я не могу получить, почему с 3-го ребенка. Были очень жаркие дискуссии, и этот законопроект прошел в урезанном виде, и было вмешательство международных финансовых институтов. И в марте 2018 года мы, как я уже говорила, сделали обратно 2 шага назад. И в новом законодательстве уже есть первое универсальное пособие по рождению, единовременное оно сохраняется, а остальное остается как было. Да? Это адресность, это выявляются бедные семьи. Но я хочу сказать, про вызовы я уже сказала в нашей системе в Кыргызстане. Сейчас в парламенте огромная работа, создана рабочая группа, мы собираем данные по всей стране, чтобы изучить, в чем основные проблемы, и когда мы уже хотим внедрить то, что мы пытались внедрить в 2017 году, это пособие для всех детей до 3 лет, чтобы первые золотые 1000 дней были охвачены для детей, чтобы у них питание было нормальным. И потихоньку готовим тоже общественность, что это долгосрочные вливания в наше общество, и что это поможет в долгосрочном периоде для Кыргызстана. Готовим общественность. И рабочая группа собирает данные, анкетирует, и мы собираемся уже в скором времени, изучив данные, внести изменения в законодательство, и я надеюсь, что нам это удастся. Другой успех для Кыргызстана – то, что цели устойчивого развития, они все отражены и имплементированы в национальные программы Кыргызстана. Есть стратегия до 2040 года устойчивого развития. Там тоже отражены именно все те моменты, о которых я говорила, до 2040 года по социальной защите, подписанная президентом страны. И у него тоже, могу сказать, есть понимание и воля двигаться по этому пути. Есть программа правительства, тоже она очень сильно совпадает, даже сильнее совпадает по графикам, чем стратегия, с целями устойчивого развития. Есть огромная роль парламента, которая координирует, чтобы мы достигали целей устойчивого развития быстрее, и что для этого делается. В 2020 году у нас национальный отчет по ЦУР Кыргызстана, и мы готовимся активно сейчас. Вот такие вызовы и минусы в Кыргызстане, и мы дальше работаем в этом направлении.
Спасибо большое. Thank you very much. I think we've heard about the experience of Kyrgyzstan, which is an interesting example of a country that has built a strong social protection system articulated around the needs of the elderly and children, and which is now, I think, in a complex and difficult discussions about the extension of the child benefit systems towards universalizations. And we understand that there's a lot of discussions for and against. Mm-hmm. So we wish you all the best on that discussion. Let me turn to Ms. Indenga, and then going to Namibia and sharing the experience of Namibia. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good after lunch to every one of us. We are very much delighted to be part of this conference as a country, and we also appreciate the efforts that we are doing toward social protections, and we are very happy that our efforts are recognized worldwide. We are very much happy to share this afternoon our experience on with the rest of the world. With the rest of the world on this important gesture of social protection. So, as a country, Namibia have various social protection programs. So, if I can highlight some of the programs that we implement as a country, we have cash transfers, which includes transfer for old age and disability grants. We have also child grant. We also have a veteran grant. So those are the types of cash transfers that we have. So in terms of other social protection, we have free education for both primary and secondary education. We also have social assistance for the social assistant loans and grants for the university registered youth. And then in addition to that, we also provide assistance for vocational trainings and skill development. And we also have income-generating projects for women and youth. So that just to give you a broader picture of some of the programs on social protection that we are implementing. But what I can share with you is one of our area in which we are doing very well as a country is the implementation of the old pension grant and the disability grant. So those are the two grants that we are doing very well as a country. So we have made a significant progress on extending social protection to our old age population, as well as to the persons that are living with disability. And our law have compelled us actually to do that. So we have a law on old age pension that is also covering the disability grant, and it's a commitment that the government have made, and that provides some sustainability in terms of social protection for these categories that I've just highlighted. In terms of coverage, for the old age, we have covered about 93% of the old age population. Our population for old age is 7%, so which means for the 7% old age, we have covered 93% of that category. While for the disability population, we have covered 67% of that population, and that might even be more because according to our old Pension Act, not all the persons that are disabled are eligible. So we are looking at a specific type of disability where a person is not able to do something for themselves. So we are providing grant for that category. And then all in all, for the two grants, the coverage currently stands at 9.6% of the population. So 9.6% of our population is covered on those two grants for the two categories. What I can say in terms of opportunities, as it was highlighted by my presenter, my moderator here, is that with the universal basic grant for the two categories that I have highlighted, we have made significant progress in reducing poverty. So currently, our country poverty rate stands at 17.4 for the upper bound and 11% for the lower bound. So we have really made a significant progress because in 2003, figures were standing at 37.4%. So I must say we have made significant progress there. So what we are seeing is that the basic social grant have really contributed towards poverty eradication, and not only for the beneficiaries alone, but also for the dependents of the beneficiary, because with this money, the old age persons were able to send their grandchildren and children to school, and they were also able to access health and cover for other necessities. So statistics have also indicated that of the grants that we are providing, for every dollar that we spend on this or that we give on this grant, we are able to get to reduce poverty by a $0.31. So which means it's really very significant towards the reduction of poverty in the country. And I think one of the reasons why we have been able to implement this, and we did very well, is that we have a political commitment from both from the current government as well as the political parties. So there is a strong commitment for us to reach out and have prosperity for all. And I think that have really contributed us, very much for us to be where we are today. And also, in addition, we have a commitment from a fiscal perspective. Much of our national expenditure have been dedicated toward social protection programs. And I must say that for the current budget, which is the budget for the 2018-19, we have 8.7%, or rather around 9%, of the government expenditure being dedicated to this cash transfer. And when I talk about this, it's the old age grant, is the disability grant, the child grant, as well as the veterans grant. And I must say it's this an achievement for us as a country because our population is around 2.2%, and if we can cover, like I've indicated, if we have covered around 9.6% of this population, I think it's an achievement that we have made as a country. In terms of challenges, I've indicated that we have been able to reduce poverty to 17.4 and 11%. However, we cannot say the same in terms of inequality. So these types of grants have really been significant toward the reduction of poverty, but we can't say the same for the inequality because inequality still remain high in Namibia. We have a ratio of 0.56, which is really high for a country like us, Namibia. So in terms of the challenges, in addition now to the inequality, there is also a challenge of fragmentation. So our social protection programs are very much fragmented, and there is ineffective in coordination or inefficiency in the coordination of this type of programs. So we have different programs, you know, we have even people that might be benefiting from the same, different programs. And this, we can blame it on a lack of a social registry as a country. So if we had a social registry that we are able to register our social programs in one go, and then we'll be able to trace who is earning from what. So like I've indicated, this leads us to have people that are double dipping, so benefiting from various programs, while we have others that are not benefiting from any. So we have problems of inclusion and exclusion. And then that limits the availability of funds to be allocated to those that are not earning anything. For example, we have a coverage from 0 age to 16, and then we jump to 60 and above. So which means in between, there is a group that is not benefiting from any of the grant, where there is also a need, because in most cases, we have unemployed youth in that category. Some of them are not even able to find jobs because they are unskilled. So that then leaves us with that gap of how we can then make a provision so that we cover for those. So now, for us to address some of the challenges that I have indicated, we are embarking upon a reform, which is, as a country, we are trying to develop a social protection policy framework with the assistance of UNICEF and OECDs and EU SPS. So I must applaud these partners for assisting us in this grant so that we can have a framework for social protection so that we are able to improve and on coordination and also have an effective social protection. So we have made a draft policy, and its consultations are still ongoing. Once we have finalized it, we will have it approved, and then we start with the implementation. But I must say that the proposal, some of the proposals that we are making in this social protection framework includes the development of a social registry. So a lot of countries this morning have been highlighting on the need of us to have a uniform system where we can register all the social protection program, and it will enable us to save some money that we can divert to other social protection programs if we bring in efficiency. So also, in addition to that, perhaps if I can highlight some of the proposal that we are making in terms of the development of this social protection policy. I must say we are looking at the option of universal maternity and healthcare coverage. We are also looking at options of universal child grant, because currently what we have realized is that for the child grants that we are currently implementing, we have only reached out to 34% of the child population. And with this, we have also realized that the benefit of the poor to the rich is almost equal, because we have the poor and rich benefiting on a 49-51% ratio. So which means 51% of the poor are benefiting, and also equally 49% of the kids that are not supposed to be benefiting are also benefiting because of the way we are implementing it, because it's now not universal. So what we are seeing is that it's better to cover everybody than leaving out some, and then the other ones are not benefiting. So those are some of the issues that we are looking at. And in addition, lastly, we are also proposing providing proposal for resource mobilization, where we need to find ways in which we are going to cover the implementation for these types of programs that we are envisaging, so that we don't just have a policy for the sake of having it, we also have a policy that is implementable. So that's what I can share with you this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Idega. So I think we just heard from the experience of Namibia, so an interesting experience in terms of, you know, a country that has made good progress in universal coverage when it comes to the elderly and the disabled population. Also a number of challenges that lie ahead in terms of, you know, addressing the inequality issue. Good progress were made in terms of poverty reduction, but inequality remain high. Fragmentation you had mentioned, and also the need now also to look at the way to expand, you know, the health coverage and maternity and child benefits. So thank you very much. Let me now turn to Ms. Moussier, who has been working extensively on informality and social protection. So Rachel, we know that, you know, in the Global South, I mean, a majority of people typically depends on the informal economy for their livelihoods. So, you know, an important question is how social assistance and social insurance schemes can be directed towards the needs of informal economy workers as a way to tackle the vulnerability challenge that they experience. So, from your experience, Rachel, how effective and equitable have been the approaches taken so far to tackle the vulnerability challenge in the informal economy?
Great. Thank you, Alexandre, and good afternoon, everyone. I will start by introducing just a little bit about who we are at WIGO. WIGO is a global policy research action network that brings together informal workers' organizations, academics, and development practitioners committed to securing livelihoods for the working poor, especially women in the informal economy. As Alexandre mentioned, we are also a member of the Global Coalition for Social Protection Floors, which represents over 100 civil society organizations, trade unions, and think tanks around the world, advocating for the implementation of ILO Recommendation 202 on national social protection floors. So that's just a bit of where we are coming from and the work that we've been doing and our allies. In response to the question, I want to go to the most recent ILO World Social Protection Report, which identifies the missing middle as those informal workers who are neither covered by social assistance nor by social insurance and have limited or no access to social services. And today, we know that the informal economy represents 2 billion people, about 60% of the global labor force. It is not a homogeneous group, therefore there is no one-size-fits-all approach or strategy in terms of extending social protection. We know that women are at the base of the economic pyramid within the informal economy as own account workers, industrial outworkers, contributing family workers. They have a higher risk of poverty than men informal workers due to their working conditions and are among the least protected across their life cycle. These women are home-based workers. They are street and market traders or waste pickers. Women are also disproportionately represented in low-paid wage employment in the informal economy as domestic workers and care providers. We draw, therefore, in our analysis at WeGo on the London Srinivas framework to determine the risks and correlating protections needed for informal workers. The framework was published by the ILO back in 2002 and outlines 3 key factors for governments to consider in designing social protection schemes to reach informal workers. The first is the nature of work. This means the sector of work, the status in employment, and the place of work. The second is gender as a social determinant of risk, and the third is the stage in the life cycle. Applying this framework allows us to identify the key gaps governments must address to achieve universal rights-based social protection by 2030. So let me identify some of the challenges we are seeing, and which many of the speakers have alluded to in their presentations. First of all, extending social insurance to informal workers is complicated, but it's not impossible. We've seen for employed women workers in the informal economy, such as domestic workers and other care workers, their employers' contributions to Social Security can make a significant difference to the protections they benefit from. However, the ILO estimates that 90% of domestic workers are legally excluded from Social Security systems, so there is a significant gap in coverage. At the same time, we know that care work and care jobs is a growing source of employment for women, and therefore offer an opportunity for better or more decent work. For self-employed women workers in the informal economy, voluntary contributory schemes are often not conducive due to their low earnings. In addition, if only informal workers are contributing to these schemes, then they are likely to fail, as the cumulative risks are high while the funds remain low. Coming to social assistance schemes, we have noticed some of the challenges that lead to the exclusion of women women workers in the informal economy. The first, not surprisingly, was just mentioned by our colleague here from Namibia regarding targeting. And it's often that targeted social assistance grants mean that women informal workers are often not deemed sufficiently poor to merit the social assistance because they are earning an income. This is linked to, as well as a bias in their current design and implementation, where social assistance schemes tend to focus on those who are not in the labor force, such as children, people living with severe disabilities, and the elderly. Though coverage rates remain low even for these groups, there are fewer schemes in place to address the needs of the working age population. For instance, less attention is given to maternity benefits than to child grants, even though both are absolutely critical if we are to improve health outcomes for women and children. Conditionalities attached to cash transfers, such as child grants, reinforce women's role as caregivers while ignoring their role as income earners, as was discussed through the OECD study as well. Governments should not stereotype women in social assistance program as only mothers and carers. We also recognize and, of course, support universal rights-based social protection, but recognize that in certain cases the cash transfers are of low value. And this poses us a challenge for women informal workers. For instance, taking the case of social pensions, the low value of the social pension doesn't replace women's income. And so we see women informal workers continuing to work well beyond the national retirement age in order to continue to earn an income while also having care responsibilities, either for their grandchildren, for children or other aging adults in their households, and at the same time requiring care for themselves as they grow older. Finally, social assistance is not a sufficient response to address this risk women informal workers face in the labor market. Women informal workers need social services such as quality public health and childcare. Women bear disproportionate responsibility for care work in their households, lengthening their working days, When a member of their family is sick or requires care, it is women primarily who stop work and lose out on their daily incomes. Therefore, access to social services and social protection, the combination of both, can protect women's income and boost the positive impact cash transfers can have on both poverty and income inequality. Finally, women informal workers, and this seems quite obvious, but sadly is not necessarily the case, need labor protections. Without employment contracts for domestic workers or municipal trading licenses for street traders and waste pickers, securing their economic activity, informal workers do not have a guarantee that they can return to work after a maternity leave or after sick leave. Social protection can never be a panacea for poor working conditions and a lack of labor regulation. So we hold that it's a combination of social insurance, social assistance, and access to quality public services that can lead to universal social protection coverage, which includes all workers. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Let me ask you a follow-up question. I mean, you obviously indicate that progress in universal social protection has been uneven when it comes to the coverage of informal economy workers. On a more positive side, can you identify successful examples of, of how social protection can actually be extended to workers, especially vulnerable workers in the informal economy?
Yes, thank you for the question. I think it is important to I'm going to start first on examples from social insurance, because I think sometimes this is one of the biggest stumbling blocks in terms of approaching the extension of social protection to informal workers. In thinking of successful examples, we start from the premise that the standard employment relationship is not and has never been the norm in the Global South. Therefore, we have to rethink the linkages between informal workers and capital. We have examples of informal workers' organizations collaborating with governments and the private sector to find creative solutions to extend social insurance to self-employed workers. I'm going to give one example. In India, Matadi boards were established in the state of Maharashtra to ensure better working conditions and social protection for the porters employed by market traders to move their goods. Those hiring a porter pay wages directly to the board, and added to this is a contribution towards social protection for the porters. Now, well-known scheme in Latin America is the monotributo system, the monotax system, a simplified tax and contribution collection mechanism for micro-enterprises that has been implemented in Uruguay, Argentina, Brazil, and Ecuador. In Uruguay, the micro-entrepreneurs that sign up to the monotask are entitled to the benefits of the national contributory social security system, except for unemployment benefit. It's proven to be an effective tool for extending social security coverage to women independent workers in particular. The reason these schemes work in comparison to voluntary schemes is that self-employed informal workers' contributions are cross-subsidized by the social security contributions of formal workers and their employers. Another example that we see is informal workers' organizations are also providing services to their members when public services are either lacking or inadequate. In Ghana, the Greater Accra Market Association, who is a member of WIGO, represents 40,000 informal traders in the city, and it manages a childcare center in one of the city's largest markets. We did a scoping of childcare centers in and near markets, and it turns out that for 42 markets in Accra, there are only 7 childcare centers, accepting no more than, in totality, 160 children. So it's quite a small amount of coverage. Market traders have been able to organize and cross-subsidize the fees that they pay to cover the childcare cost of head porters who earn a far lower income. Of course, the childcare center is not sustainable without government support and subsidies. We see a similar example from the Self-Employed Women's Association, SEWA, a trade union of close to 2 million women informal workers who've set up childcare cooperatives in the state of Gujarat. Again, this was in response from women informal workers because the public child care center was only open 4 hours a day, and it led to too few hours for women informal workers to earn enough for the day. So what can we conclude from these examples? First is informal workers' organizations must be part of the negotiations with government, formal sector trade unions, and employers in the design and implementation of social protection schemes and the delivery of public services. Though initiatives led by informal workers' organizations, trade unions, and cooperatives may be small scale, some can serve as pilots, demonstrating that it is possible to reach vulnerable and disadvantaged groups. Governments can support the most effective schemes and integrate these into national social protection systems. Second, we cannot abandon the extension of social insurance for informal workers as a pillar of national social protection systems. Governments must explore contributory schemes that do not only rely on contributions from informal workers alone, but also draw resources from those who profit from their work and public authorities, while encouraging cost subsidies from formal sector contributions. Third, the way in which national social protection systems are financed can either enhance or undermine the redistribution of resources towards the working poor. Extending social insurance coverage can help to achieve a better financing mix for social protection system, which alleviates pressures on tax-financed social assistance benefits. However, we recognize that governments do need to expand the tax base, yet tax systems are, in many countries, becoming more regressive, increasingly dependent on indirect taxes. Corporate tax rates continue to decline amidst the global background of aggressive corporate tax avoidance and evasion. In this context, proposals to bring informal workers into the tax net in order to expand the tax base may lead to regressive financing models. Certainly, there are some workers in the informal economy who can afford to pay income and corporate taxes. Most, though, are too poor to pay income taxes. Women informal workers are among the poorest and are unlikely to meet the income tax thresholds. However, they do pay indirect taxes, such as VAT, as well as municipal licensing fees, tolls, and rent to operate in public spaces. Poor informal workers, particularly women, have less leverage with local authorities to negotiate these tax rates. Therefore, what are the terms of a new social contract with workers in the informal economy? As the missing middle of social protection coverage, their inclusion in contributory schemes and the national tax system must come with a corresponding and significant increase in universal social protection and quality social services. In addition, a more progressive financing mix is needed alongside the enforcement of labor regulations if governments are to address not only poverty, but also growing inequalities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rachel. I think you have highlighted so many important points, including the role for what we could call an enhanced social dialogue that also includes representative from the informal economy, the importance also of looking at the extension debate, both from the perspective of social assistance, but also social insurance, and ensuring also the responsibility of employers and employees that are in hidden form of employment, and keeping in mind also that, unfortunately, in many cases, the tax system is regressive, and this is to be kept in mind when we think about tax-based financing for social protection. Now, I'd like to turn to you, Ipu, as I know that you have also, more specific questions for our distinguished panelists. I think we have another 10 minutes. Sure.
Thank you very much, and also from my side, it's welcome, and it's really great to be here. We've had very rich responses and examples, very concrete examples, and we were going to kind of dig deeper into your cases, but in fact, you all have already talked in quite comprehensively about the different different social protection policies across life course, and including universal health coverage. Therefore, if I may, I will change the plan just a little bit and ask, in the interest of time, so that we can respect the time allocation we have, could you, each of you, identify one thing that you think could really help you in terms of improving the implementation and going forward? So if you had a magic wand, then what would it be that you would change in order to achieve universal social protection in your own context, and what has been the priority for you as you have identified? And if you can just tell us that one thing, and we can start. So we start from Mr. Maliki.
Thank you. I guess we are going to continue with our own case on the health insurance, national health insurance, that, as mentioned earlier, that we have one of the most successful universal social protections, almost universals in Indonesia, and as well as I think in the world, is that we have this national health insurance that cover almost 80% of the populations. That count for like 200 million of the peoples. And this one is like the largest single payers of the health insurance in the world. For example, in 2017, we managed for more than like almost 200 million consultations, health consultations all over Indonesia. And this one is enable us to reduce the equity problems on the health access in Indonesia. This is happens because I think also the same with that we have the government, very strong government commitment on both sides, both in the supply side as well as the demand side. In the demand side itself, the government as mandated in the constitutions that we support for the vulnerables, the poor and vulnerables, and especially in this case we support for 40% lowest income populations. So if you ask how we would like to proceed to have better implementations of this health insurance, is that how we actually can address, as previously mentioned, how we can address, says like the missing middle, because says the government already cover for the 40% of the lowest population, and then some of the populations is like the formals can afford for the premiums, and there is some borders between the 40% and the middle income that count usually like informal workers that. They have income, but they cannot afford for the subsidy. This is quite a challenge for us, and the challenge is that they actually easily come into the system, but then they cannot like sustain their memberships. So this is, I think this is requires more like intersectoral, interbody, or intergovernmental effort, because the role of the government here is quite important. One thing is that the central government already have supported the 40%, and there is also the local government supported for another on top of the populations. This is, I think we require like strong coordinations between the local and the local and also the central government on how we can better targeting. And Indonesia is have, I think, also have more advanced developing on the single database, unified database, and it's growing and developing into more advanced systems. They call it 6NG, and these 2 years, the last 2 years, we are in the era of how we can integrate the social registry with the civil registration system that allows, I guess, these integrations between the poor or the 40% and the total populations to have a better targeting for the whole sources that we have, both on the central and also the local government.
Excellent, thank you very much. You're really focusing on equity and also bringing up the missing middle as a focus for that is required for big change. What about Paraguay?
Bueno, realmente no me imaginé que la siguiente pregunta iba a ser tan difícil. Elegir, para empezar, por un lugar, un campeón, un ganador, en términos de la ampliación de la cobertura de protección social, lo difícil es elegir uno. Pero como vamos a incluir la magia en esta pregunta con la varita mágica, entonces me permito empezar con dos sectores principalmente. Por un lado, asegurar una canasta básica de protección social por ciclo de vida. Yo creo que eso asegura que nadie quede fuera, asegurar prestaciones básicas en términos de derechos para los niños, primera infancia, lo que tiene que ver con educación y con salud es fundamental. Y si a eso incorporamos desarrollo infantil temprano, bueno, estamos hablando de un país en desarrollo, ¿verdad? Y por supuesto, en esta misma línea, también con los siguientes grupos de edad que tiene que ver con juventud, la preparación y capacitación adecuada, no solamente para insertarlos a un mundo ya de educación formal universitario, sino también terciario en términos técnicos, ¿verdad? E incorporarnos hacia un mundo más global, utilizando sobre todo la tecnología y la innovación en estos nuevos mercados y nuevos modelos de mercado que tenemos, ¿verdad? Y por supuesto, asegurar también las prestaciones propias de la población que está trabajando en este momento y que está excluida del sistema de seguridad. Y seguir con el apoyo que tenemos para adultos mayores en situación de pobreza que han trabajado toda su vida, no han podido de alguna manera aportar a una caja o a una seguridad social y hoy están desprotegidos. Entonces, lo que estamos haciendo en términos éticos y de derechos es asegurarle una canasta de alimentos a través de unas transferencias, ¿verdad? Eso por un lado en términos de no dejar a nadie atrás y sobre todo incluirlos en un sistema un poco más universal y en un sistema amplio, trabajar en estos términos por ciclos de vida y de manera gradual. Pero por otro lado también, y en términos tal vez un poco más profundos y de reformas más importantes, yo abordaría principalmente la seguridad social. Hoy en Paraguay, 2 de cada 10 que trabajan aportan a un sistema de seguridad social. 8 están excluidos. Entonces están desprotegidos y eso va más allá de una población en situación de pobreza. Estamos hablando de una población que trabaja y que no tiene las prestaciones y tampoco tiene las garantías de tener en el futuro una vejez de calidad y asegurada. Entonces, una atención especial a esto y con esto viene, por supuesto, todo lo que tiene que ver con las prestaciones en términos de seguridad social. Comentábamos anteriormente que la ampliación del sistema de salud ha sido muy importante, sin embargo todavía tenemos un 20% excluido de este sistema de salud y estamos hablando de poblaciones todavía más vulnerables y que se encuentran más alejados y también excluidos de la formalidad del empleo. En este sentido, agregar un elemento más abusando un poco de la varita mágica y tiene que ver con la calidad de la entrega de servicios. Porque por un lado tenemos prestaciones y tenemos entrega de servicios, pero por otro lado tenemos la calidad. Y en ese sentido, tanto salud como educación están en un proceso muy importante de transformación y de reformas que nos van a permitir llegar cada vez mejor a la población. Son grandes elementos, solo quiero tocar estos 3 por ahora, que tiene que ver por una canasta básica, fundamental y de piso y mínimos sociales para protección social por ciclos de vida, una transformación de la seguridad social y también, por supuesto, asegurar a la población más vulnerable.
That's excellent. You, again, are talking about system, progressive realization, universalism, and also kind of echoing similar things to do with equity, as we heard from Indonesia. I will give you the wands after this session. But before that, we move to Kyrgyzstan. One change that would really make a difference and speed up progress for you.
Насколько я поняла, вы задаете вопрос, что вы бы хотели изменить, одну вещь, которая поменяла бы ситуацию. Я правильно поняла? No translation?
No translation.
Я уже говорила, что в нашей стране 70% людей заняты в неформальной экономике, да, то есть мы не видим декларации, мы не видим, у нас нет единой базы данных. Кроме этого, 60% из самых бедных детей не получают по ошибке исключения детские пособия. Я все-таки буду говорить из перспективы защиты детей, про детские пособия. И я долго думала над этим вопросом, он очень важный. Я считаю, как миссия, как политика, моя миссия – это вот защищенные дети. У нас сейчас в Кыргызстане проблема с насилием детей. И я это очень сильно связываю с тем, что вот пособие или мы упустили какую-то цепь, или мы упустили что-то, что мы не можем защитить своих детей. И что могло бы поменять ситуацию, как вы говорите, вот что-то как волшебные палочки, да, но в то же время было достижимо. Я считаю, что должна быть единая база данных, вот, цифровизация. У нас в этом году год цифровизации в Кыргызстане, и в системе ГРЭС, я бы в системе Минздрава, система соцзащиты, у нас разные, очень много министерств, и я бы хотела, чтобы эти данные были едиными, универсальными для всей страны. И исключая коррупцию, мы могли бы знать точные данные, мы могли бы исходить из этих данных, и чтобы эти пособия, деньги, которые государство выделяет детям или бедным семьям, достигало их, чтобы на полпути где-то не оставалось в карманах чиновников недобросовестных, да, чтобы система вот, цифровизация заработала, и чтобы эти дети, эти семьи получили, и эти деньги шли на то, чтобы они вышли из бедности. Я считаю, что в этом для Кыргызстана выход и развитие человеческого капитала. Второе, я бы все еще хотела, это дополнение, да, я сталкиваюсь с тем, что в Кыргызстане политики и люди, которые принимают решения, мои коллеги, и в целом люди не понимают иногда коммуникационно, что им даст поддержка детей, почему мы должны поддерживать детей, почему дети должны хорошо питаться, и у них должны быть права, да, все фундаментальные права, доступ ко всему. Вот этого понимания, что это через 20 лет, через 10 лет мы вот сейчас оказались в такой ситуации, когда детей насилуют, очень много вот, вспышка в Кыргызстане, или детей бьют, или даже убивают, да, что это взаимосвязанные вопросы, что мы не поддерживаем детей, что мы экономим, что экономия не принесет хороших вещей. Я бы хотела, чтобы вот коммуникационно объяснить населению очень простым языком. И я считаю, что вот мы, раз уж мы здесь собрались, я бы хотела, чтобы в Кыргызстане в этом направлении велась работа, и это могло бы дать результаты. Спасибо.
Super, thank you very much. You're talking about, again, what do you need to support systems in terms of reliable data, good governance, but also awareness of child protection, what it means and how it is implemented. Thank you. Finally, what's your one change that you would push in Namibia?
Thank you very much for the question. For me, I am going for a single registry because it will help us to address challenges of inclusion and exclusion, which will then release funds that we would be able to cover those that are not covered, and also it will help to better up our implementation, because most of the time we are not able to implement because we are not coordinated and we are not registering in a single registry, and that will then help us to trace who is getting what type of assistance from the government. And lastly, I would go for universal child grant, because for me, spending on children is not an expenditure, but an investment. So I thank you.
That's also my opinion. Thank you very much. The whole concept of coordination is central, isn't it? Just one word of Life Course. We've seen the kind of the instruments across Life Course. I remember when the SDGs were being prepared, sitting in a meeting where we were having conversations about what should be included in the SDGs. And there were 23 representatives, all representing one vulnerable group. We had women, well, that's 50% of the population. We had persons with disabilities. We had children. We had girl children. We had youth. We had ethnic minorities, 23 groups. And the point was to argue which one was the most vulnerable. Now, this is hardly development. And I think that the Life Course approach is a mindset. And we have seen here, everybody has been talking about systems. So to move away from the silos of vulnerable groups, because nobody is vulnerable inherently. It is the environment that makes us so. And looking at Life Course and looking at the transition risks across Life Course and what happens to a woman with, depending on how her childhood it is or how her functional ability is to old age, is how we need to think. And that's where social protection is fundamental, because this is a system that really does address all the points of risks and risks of transition for everybody. And I just really want to thank all of you on the panel and my co-moderator for this session and the kind of depth of the conversation. And indeed, we have the ones at the back, so we'll have a chat afterwards. Thank you.
So thanks a lot to our panelists. So it's now time for a break again, and we are back here